Hare Krishna. So I have a very big ego. So when I am writing on this, all the time people are looking away from me. I don't like that. Not really, actually. Maybe it is true also, but one devotee told me that I have to do a lot of neck exercise. So I'll be writing and drawing here as we discuss some things. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming here today. And today we'll try to address one of the common challenges that we all face in life. That is when things go wrong. When we plan one thing and something else happens. And sometimes things can go wrong slightly, sometimes things can go wrong severely, sometimes things can go wrong catastrophically. So when things go wrong, sometimes our reactions make things worse. So we will look at one traumatic incident in the Ramayana and we'll try to see how the characters responded over there. So this today's session will be in 3 parts. First part, I will talk about 4 approaches to understanding the sacred texts, like especially the stories in the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavatam. Then the second part, I'll talk about the incident itself, how it happened, and look at the underlying psychology of the thought process of characters. And then third, we will focus on the virtue that is talked about by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 16.2, aversion to fault finding. How not to find faults or to blame someone. Now how actually to go about fixing the situation, that we'll be discussing in tomorrow morning session. So this pastime today I will speak till the point that Sita gets abducted. Then after that, what does Ram do, what does Lakshman do, what does Jatayu do, what does Sita herself do, that we'll be discussing in tomorrow morning session, and we'll see how all of them in their own way tried to do something to, if not fix the situation, at least contribute toward fixing the situation. So in general, when we hear stories from sacred texts, we often may enjoy the element of novelty in the stories. Oh, this is a new story, and the stories themselves are quite adventurous. Some of us may have grown up hearing stories from the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, and some of us may have heard them as we were introduced to Bhakti or later through popular culture, through some movies or through some TV shows, whatever way it is. So these stories, they are often presented as wonderful stories to hear. But if you look at our tradition itself, the stories can be approached at 4 different levels. So I refer to this by the acronym LEAD, that the stories can be understood. First is at a literal level. This is what happened. Then there is the ethical level, that we We'll discuss each of these levels, but let me quickly go over these levels. Then there is the allegorical level. Allegorical is what does thing represent, and then the last is the devotional level. So literal, ethical, allegorical, and devotional. Now each of these approaches, they serve a purpose, and they also can have certain limitations. It's like a perspective. If we want to buy a house, we may want to look from the front side, from the right side, from the top side. Okay, what is the kind of neighborhood around here? We may want different perspectives. So these approaches are like perspectives. So the literal approach is generally the most common approach at one level, not necessarily in a positive or negative sense, but this is the common approach. So at the literal level, the positive and the negative. At the literal level, there is entertainment. Now, of course, it's not just entertainment, it is pious entertainment. Now, when we have our children and we tell the children stories about Krishna, we had this little Krishna document series which was there. So, it's quite nice stories to hear. And there is drama, there is romance, there is action, there is betrayal, there is intrigue, there are conspiracies. So, what would make a story attractive, all the elements are there in these stories. So there's entertainment over here. However, the negative side of this could be that it is not that the approach itself is having a problem, considering that is the only level at which we approach it. It could become boring. I know the story, what's there now? Now, okay, see, like when some movies are released and they are reviewed, sometimes the review they write for spoiler free review or spoiler alert, because the very word spoiler, what does it mean? And if you actually know the story, then the fun in watching it gets lost. So if I know the story, we might get bored by it. And then they can also seem very unsophisticated, in the sense that, oh, you believe in miracles, you believe this thing happens, that thing happens. So intelligent people, those who are a little more rational, analytical, they may not find them very appealing. So initially when I was introduced to Bhakti, generally I had not heard about these different approaches, although they are used, but most of the time in religious traditions, stories are told at the literal level. And we are told, you should have more taste. If you hear the story, how Mahaprabhu heard hundreds of times and he was so ecstatic. And I found that I was not ecstatic at all. My brain was getting static. I started feeling very intellectually unemployed when I was hearing the stories. Then I started looking at the tradition. How does Vishwanath Thakur look at the stories? How does Baldev Vidyabhushan look at the stories? Now, what does Jiva Goswami do with the stories? Especially, what does Bhaktivinoda Thakur do with the stories? Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about various approaches. Now, this particular 4 levels is not talked about by any particular acharya, but I'll give you examples of how this is implicitly used. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about how in Krishna Leela, he talks about how different demons represent different things. So, Putana represents a false guru, for example. So, he's giving different levels of meaning. In the Brahma Sutra Bhashya also, Madhvacharya talks about how the itihasas can be understood at different levels. Now, at the level of ethical, so at the literal level, it's just children's stories. Maybe some good values are learned through it, but that is not the primary focus. The primary focus is just have a nice story. Now, at the ethical level, we get guidance for decision making. Now, what did this character do at this time? And what can we learn from it? So, for example, we may study Kaikeyi's character and how her ears were poisoned by Manthara. And we may learn that we should not just hear one side of the story and take drastic decisions based on hearing one side of the story. And while the ethical may not be talked about explicitly, but it is very much in the tradition. Say for example, if we read the Ramayana, we may be told that just as Ram obeyed his parents, we should obey our parents. Just Lakshman followed Bharat, so Lakshman followed Ram. So like that, we should follow our elder siblings. Sita was faithful to Ram. Like that, we should be faithful to our spouses. So there are some lessons which are taught through the actions of those characters. So when at the ethical level we look at it, we get guidance for decision making. Now, Srila Prabhupada also uses this, for example, in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. He says that Arjuna is thoughtful. Arjuna is not just rushing into fighting the war, he's analyzing and deliberating what is the right thing to do. And this indicates, such thoughtfulness indicates that Arjuna is actually ready to receive the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, some previous acharyas, especially Madhusudan Saraswati, states that the entire purpose of the first chapter is to demonstrate through Arjuna's thoughtfulness how he is qualified for receiving the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the ethical level. Arjuna is doing ethical deliberation. Now, the negative side of looking at things from an ethical perspective is that we can become judgmental. Or we may even start thinking of some characters to be unethical. Say, we consider Yudhishthira to be Dharmaraj. And how could he have staked everything in gambling? So we may start thinking of these characters, their ethics may not seem to be evident to us. They may not be relatable to us. And sometimes we may say, oh, this character made a foolish decision. Now, that may be jarring to some people because these are considered to be sacred characters. So now, if you see Srila Prabhupada, more or less in his first chapter purports in the Bhagavad Gita, he focuses on how Arjuna is thoughtful and reflective and he is qualified. But as soon as the second chapter starts, Tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam, he's crying and immediately Prabhupada's tone seems to change. Now, tears are a sign of ignorance and attachment. Everybody is suffering from the skin disease, misidentifying with the body. Arjuna is also suffering like this, and Krishna will speak the Bhagavad Gita to free Arjuna and free the whole world from ignorance. Now is Arjuna thoughtful or is he ignorant? It's almost like an about turn. So here the key is that we will talk about this again at the devotional level, but the way to avoid the judgmentality is our focus when we are doing the ethical study is not on who is right, but what is right. These are sacred characters and we want to respect those characters. But at the same time, they are in the material world and the material world is a messy place. By whatever reason, they may take some wrong decisions and we look at those reasons from another perspective later. But our focus should be on what can I learn? It's not that we are putting ourselves in a superior position. This character was foolish. This character was short-sighted. No. But there are some things we can learn from those characters. So, not so much who is right as what is right. That's why Prabhupada in the first chapter purport is telling us how we should be thoughtful like Arjuna. But the second chapter his focus is, yeah, we might be thoughtful, but if we don't have knowledge, then our thoughtfulness is not going to really take us anywhere. For being thoughtful, we have to have some foundation of knowledge. So Prabhupada is taking two different perspectives. So you'll see this sometimes in other pastimes. There is in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam the pastime of how Maharaj Chitraketu gets cursed by Mother Parvati and he becomes a demon. Now when Chitraketu laughs on seeing Shiva giving a discourse on renunciation while Parvati is sitting on his lap. At that time, Prabhupada says that there were great sages over there. They were not laughing. Why did Chitraketu have to laugh. If great souls are doing something which we can't understand, it's best not to pass judgment and especially be disrespectful. But then, when Parvati curses him and he remains extremely composed and he exhibits his devotional faithfulness in the Lord, even in the face of this curse, at that time, now Lord Shiva does not chastise Parvati, but he says, just see how great the devotees are. And then the purport Prabhupada says that Parvati, she should have considered that Lord Shiva had not got angry, the sages had not got angry, and she rushed to judgment over there. So, if somebody is doing something disrespectful, rather than immediately punishing them, we need to try to understand what is going on, why are they being disrespectful. So, don't laugh at others when they do something questionable. That is one lesson. Another lesson is, if somebody is doing something questionable and you are in a powerful position, don't immediately punish them. Try to find out what is actually going on. So the focus needs to be on what is right, not who is right. Now the third is the intellectual level. The allegorical level. It's a little more intellectual, where people want to look at the symbolism. The symbolism that illustrates some universal themes. So for example, at this level, we will look at Ravan, but while looking at Ravan, our focus may not be who is Ravan, but what is Ravan. Ravan was a demon who acted at a particular time in history, but Ravan also represents a mentality. What mentality does he represent? Demoniac, of course, but specifically? Yes, uncontrolled lust. See, lust itself is not necessarily always the problem. Krishna says, dharma viruddho bhuteshu. When the kama disregards dharma, then it can become destructive. So there is symbolism that characters represent certain things. So for example, when Mother Devaki has 6 children and then they are killed by Kamsa, and then Balram and Krishna appear. So those 6 children who are killed are said to represent what? The 6 anarthas: lust, anger, greed, envy, pride and illusion. So the symbolism there is that her heart is like, her womb is like our heart. And when these anarthas are removed, then the spiritual master, who is represented by Balram, and then Krishna, the Supreme Lord, will actually become fully manifest in our heart and through our heart for others to see. So there is symbolism in this. Now, this is especially appealing to people who are very analytical, intellectual. Okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? Now, the danger of this approach is deconstruction. Deconstruction means everything is reduced to simply symbolism. And it's made into basically non-historical or non-real. So Prabhupada was very concerned about his approach when some commentators said actually Kurukshetra represents the human body. And the 5 Pandavas are like the virtues and the 100 Kauravas are like the many vices that are there inside us. Now Prabhupada would say Kurukshetra exists as a physical place. So that means when we are looking at something symbolic, the symbolism should be seen as addition to the historical, not as a replacement of the historical. So that's where somebody starts doing too much deconstruction. Then this particular approach can lead to problems. So everything becomes very symbolized. Okay, what does Krishna's peacock feather mean? What does Krishna's bluish black color mean? What does Krishna's flute mean? Well, it just means Krishna is a living, loving person. And every person has their individual tastes, individual likes. And those are just ornaments of their personality. When we deal with people, we don't have to psychoanalyze them all the time, isn't it? If somebody says, I like halwa. Okay, why do you like halwa? Why I like it. So each person has their preferences, their taste. So for us, the specifics about Krishna are ornaments of his personality, are features of his personality. Might they have some symbolism behind it? Maybe. But what happens is, many times at this level, the literal, the actual is seen as something unimportant, and what you can go behind that, that's what becomes important. That's why in our tradition, this allegorical approach is used, but it is carefully used. Now, at the devotional level, these are seen as simply reciprocations of divine love. That this is all the word used is Leela. ये सब भगवान की लीला है. It is all the pastime of the Lord. That means we see everything that happens as an arrangement of the Lord. Arrangement of the Lord by which the glory of the devotee can be shown to the world. The glory of the Lord's love for the devotee can be shown to the world. So it's all an arrangement of the Lord. And at this level, the focus is primarily on absorption in the Lord. Just remember the Lord. And a devotee just becomes immersed in the Lord. So for example, Prabhupada takes this approach when he says that Arjuna's illusion at the start of the Bhagavad Gita was Krishna's arrangement. So that means the Lord is making arrangements so that he can fulfill some purpose. In that case, the purpose was to share the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and through Arjuna with the whole world. So we can see them as Leela, as reciprocations of divine love. Now that means everything that happened, why did it happen? Why did Yudhishthir, why did Arjuna come confused? Oh, it is Krishna's arrangement. Why did Yudhishthir gamble like that? It is Krishna's arrangement. Now what happens is, at this level, it can be ethically and logically unsatisfactory. Why? Because if everything is ultimately Krishna's arrangement, then there is nothing to learn from it. Everything is Krishna's arrangement. So, say imagine a plane crashes. And when the plane crashes, there is a committee appointed to investigate what caused the plane crash. And some person with a little knowledge of physics comes. Says, you people, why are you wasting so much time and money investigating the plane crash? I already know what caused the plane crash. Really? Tell us. It was gravity, stupid. Now, is gravity the cause of the plane crash? Well, yes and no. Without gravity, no plane would crash. But the plane is designed in such a way that it should not crash even in the presence of gravity. So, what we want to know is what caused that mechanism to malfunction. And that is the subject of investigation over there. So, similarly, yes, everything is Krishna's arrangement ultimately. But does that mean that we don't have free will? Does that mean that we should not deliberate over how we make our decisions? Should we not consider what others have thought when they made particular decisions? Certainly these need to be considered, isn't it? So at the devotional level, or this can be also called a transcendental level, sometimes because the focus is so much on relishing the reciprocations with the Lord, that at an ethical level or at an intellectual level, it can seem very hollow or unsatisfactory. And especially for someone who is approaching these stories and has not yet accepted the supremacy of Krishna, or has not yet accepted especially the benevolence of Krishna, that Krishna is Suhridam Sarva Bhutana, Krishna is the well-wisher of everyone, the Lord is the well-wisher of everyone. They may say, these stories, the way you are looking at the stories, you're just neglecting all the moral aspects of the story. So the devotional approach is very good for relishing at a transcendental level. So these are various approaches which we can use. Now, which approach is appropriate for whom? It depends. For children, the literal approach is good. And also for people who are not very analytical, for people who are just, you could say, thrill seekers or entertainment seekers, for them, somebody who can be a very good storyteller, for them that approach is very good. for people who are a little bit more analytical, the ethical and the allegorical approaches are good. The analysis can be from different perspectives. Analysis can be more for learning some life lessons, some values. So the way Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes it, that the literal is the level that is used by the Kanishthas. You know, the Kanishta is the first level devotees. They're introductory. They take everything literally. He explained that they come to a temple, but their focus is only on worshipping the deities. They're not interested in associating with devotees. So at the Kanishta level, the focus is on the literal aspect. Then the ethical, that basically the non-literal meanings, that is at the Madhyama level. And what he does by talking about this is, so some people are a little analytical. They may say, you know, you people, what? They may look down on the Kanishthas and say, what are these stories? You have heard them 100 times and there are so many illogical elements in them. How do you enjoy these stories? You know, do you check your brain out when you go and start hearing the stories? So they may look down at such people. So he pats them on the back. Yeah, you know, you are more intelligent, you are more analytical. And he appreciates that. But then comes the twist in the tale. Those who look for symbolic things, they think that they are going deeper. And yes, he appreciates that. But he says there is a still deeper level. And that is the devotional level is the Uttama level, the highest level. So at this level, there is the experience of rasa. There is the experience of bhakti. At this level, the recitation of the stories, the hearing of the stories, it actually transports us to another reality. It helps us experience the reality and the proximity and the intimacy of Krishna. Krishna is not just some historical person. He is our heart, He is our Lord, He is in our heart, He loves us. These pastimes demonstrate how wonderfully His love is. So for them, the rasa is experienced. So the idea here is that for those who are pure devotees or those who are aspiring pure devotees, they may want to focus on the devotional level. So for example, Janmashtami, just want to hear the appearance of Krishna, want to relish, go deep into that. And when we have really love for something, then we like to hear it more and more. Sometimes, if somebody likes a particular hero or likes a particular movie, they watch it 10 times, 50 times, 100 times. So what happens is when there is love, that particular thing is still limited, but still they keep watching it, try to find something new, some new insight, this, that. But Krishna is actually eternal. Krishna is expansive. So a devotee can find ever new things in it. So like that, the Shastric stories can be understood at different levels. So in our discussion here, can you guess which level we are going to focus on? Sorry? Okay, we will be focusing on the ethical level. Because we are going to discuss about practical, when some mistakes, when bad things happen, how do we deal with that? We can just say when bad things happen, it's all Krishna's arrangement. That way, just if somebody is suffering when something terrible has happened, and especially if I make a mistake and you are suffering because of that, and if I say it's Krishna's arrangement, you will just get enraged, isn't it? You'll feel that so sometimes what happens is philosophy can be used to rationalize. Have any of you heard this word rationalize? Any idea what it means? What? Sorry?
Justify. To make it objective. Justify it.
Okay, they're two different things over here. So sometimes rationalize is to give a rational explanation. But that is one aspect of it. Another aspect is to justify. Justify means to give a more acceptable reason for a less acceptable action. Say if a husband has promised his wife, I'm going to stop smoking. And the wife comes into the husband's office and she smells the smoke everywhere. Why are you smoking? The room was very cold. I just wanted to make it warm for you. So now, when we rationalize, often we tell rational lies. We use our intelligence to try to come up with some reasons to explain away something questionable. So many times, if somebody just in every situation jumps to transcendent, it's all Krishna's arrangement. Well, no, it is not Krishna's arrangement. It is your foolishness. It is your irresponsibility. It's your carelessness. So somebody may feel like that. So we are going to discuss. We will keep the devotional perspective in mind, no doubt, but we will be focusing on the ethical level. So now, this was a little more intellectually dense part of the session. Remaining part won't be that dense. Don't worry about it. In the Ramayana, when the exile happened, at that time, initially there was complete heartbreak for everyone except Kaikeyi. But eventually Ram and Sita and Lakshman went to the forest. They first stayed in Chitrakoot. Chitrakootadriniketan Rama. They stayed there, and this was the time when they came so much closer to each other. There are some commentators in the Ramayana, our tradition, they say that the pastimes in Chitrakoot is like the Vrindavan for Ram Leela. Because when they were in the kingdom, at that time both of them had royal responsibilities. There were always people around them. So they didn't get so much time to spend with each other. But here they came very close to each other. And although they were in poverty, they had so much more proximity. And then they spent almost most of their exile in Chitrakoot. But when the last year was there, at that time they decided to come southward. They said that we are unlikely to get any opportunity to come back into the forest like this in the future. So let us travel, let us meet the sages, let us get some wisdom for them, let us look at various places in the forest. So then they came down. Dandakavan Jan Pavan Rama. They came to Dandakavan. And when they came, this was their last year. And that was where something traumatic happened. The whole sequence of events that led to the abduction of Sita. Now, generally, so I'll be telling the story, but I'll also be taking some like a back step to try and analyze the story. See, when something bad happens, where do we start the causal link that led to the bad thing? Now somebody may say, Sita's abduction wouldn't have happened without Kaikeyi's plot. If Kaikeyi had not plotted, then this would never have happened. But how much far backward can you keep going? There's a chain of events. Now they moved southward. If they had stayed in Chitrakoot, nothing would have happened. We could say that. But then, after that, while they were living peacefully. And then Shurpankhah came there. Shurpankhah was traveling around, and suddenly she smelt human flesh. And she said, hey, there are hardly any human beings over here. I would like to eat them. She started searching, where is it coming from? She followed it. And then when she saw Ram looked so majestic, so handsome, that within one moment, her lunchbox changed into her love interest. And she started planning. Now the whole series that happened at that time, she initially approached Ram and she took on the garb of a very beautiful woman. And now, in general, it is that the male-female relationship dynamic is that generally the male approaches himself first. Men desire women, women desire the desire of men. That women get a sense of power by how many men are attracted to me. And men naturally they desire men. So normally for a woman to take the first step forward, 8 is not very common, and it makes her quite vulnerable. So when she took the step forward, she said, I want to be with you. So Ram wanted to gently let her down. And Ram said that, actually I am already married, and I have taken a vow that I will have only one wife. So then he said that, but he could see that her desire was so intense. So she said, but my brother is unengaged. You can go to him. And she immediately went there. So that shows it was actually not love. It was just lust. When there is lust, it's like the other person is just an interchangeable object, whoever it is. So when he went there, now Ram and Lakshman were close to each other. They understood what was going on. So Lakshman immediately understood what was going on. Or sometimes this was, Ram was with Sita. So sometimes Ram would give a particular assignment that was not particularly palatable. He would tell Lakshman, you deal with it. Ram would be with Sita and Lakshman would take care of the many chores that would be there. So then Lakshman told her, yeah, actually I am here as a servant of Ram, and servant of Ram and Sita. So if you are with me, you will have to become a maid servant of both of them. So he spoke it in such a way, gently letting her go. Telling her not no directly, but indirectly. But for her, she said, this one man said no to me, second man said no to me. How dare? Getting 2 rejections in one day is too much. So now see, everyone gets angry. Everybody feels hurt, everybody gets angry. But the difference between the divine and the demoniac nature is not that those who have a divine nature have no lust or no anger or no greed. They may have it also. But the difference is that the divine nature people, they live within boundaries. They respect boundaries. But the demoniac nature, they just rush through boundaries. They don't care for boundaries. So now she came at one moment with desire. And yes, the world is such that desire can afflict anyone. And people can feel hurt. But what did she do? She said, how dare both of them? Why are both of them refusing me? That is because of this Sita. And she immediately pounced on Sita to try to strangle her. Now this is, see, when we all get no in our life, it's difficult to bear. But when some no comes, what extent does someone go? There are movies about love triangles and things like that. But then 2 people might try to woo the same person. But if one person tries to kill the second person, that's deadly. That changes that person from being a potential hero or heroine to become a villain immediately, isn't it? So we all need to function within boundaries. So Shurpanakha's demoniac nature comes out over here, where she tries to strangle Sita. And Ram says, stop Lakshman. Lakshman, stop her. And then, now Lakshman stops her. Now when Sita is about to be killed, Ram and Lakshman, they could have killed Shurpanakha. But they decided, we will not kill her. And we'll give her some symbolic punishment. So they cut off her nose, as this happened at the place called Nasik. And Nasika was cut off, and the nose was cut off. So now she got enraged. Now we could say this whole chain of incidents happened because of Shurpanakha's craving, Shurpanakha's lust, we could say. Now after that, she went to her brothers and she brought Kharat Dushan over there along with their 14,000 army, and Ram single-handedly destroyed all of them. Now Ram and Lakshman realized that Shurpanakha, if she is here, there must be some other people also over here. Because although they saw her as a woman, when she tried to strangle Ram and especially when her nose was cut off, then she appeared in her original form. So generally what happens, there are demons have the capacity to sometimes change their forms, but that requires some conscious attention, some energy to maintain that form. Like say we all have a natural voice. Now we can mimic someone else. But say if we are suddenly having some pain, say if I am mimicking someone and suddenly I start feeling some severe heart pain, at that time I won't be able to mimic anyone. Because the attention shifts to immediately dealing with the danger and surviving. That's why we'll see even in Krishna Leela, whenever any demon is killed, the demon's original form comes out. Putana had come again as a beautiful woman, but then her giant form was manifest when she started losing her life. So they realized Shurpanakha was quite powerful. They realized that there might be other demons over here. So now they came and attacked, and Ram dealt with all of them. That was one of the most amazing acts of martial valor. So what Ram did in Janasthan is similar to what Arjuna did in Virat. Single-handedly defeating her. Lakshman also wanted to fight. Ram said, no, you be with Sita and you protect her. So they kept Sita in a cave and he dealt with them. Now Shurpanakha just went mad with anger. And then she just wandered around aimlessly, and finally she came to Ravana. So now in between there was a demon named Akampan. He had survived in the Janasthan regiment. He was the only person who went and hid behind and he didn't charge forward. And when he saw the power of Ram, he just ran away. He ran all the way to Lanka. His name was Akampan, but when he came before Ravan, he was doing Kampan. He was trembling in fear. And when he told Ravan what had happened, Ravan was enraged. He said, I'll destroy all of them. And then Akampan told him that, now I have seen Ram's prowess. He is an extremely powerful warrior. He said, it might be very difficult to face him in war. Now Akampan was speaking this very, very cautiously because he's a king and he didn't want to minimize Ravan's power. But Ravan also respected Akampan as a skilled fighter. So he said, do you expect me to take this insult? I'm never going to do that. He said, I have a strategy. He said, I saw in that forest, Ram has brought his wife with him. This indicates that he must be very attached to his wife. So, if you can abduct his wife, then he will become mad. He will become so dejected because of his weakness. His attachment is his weakness. Like you may see in movies, sometimes somebody wants to get to the hero, the villain wants to get to the hero, and the villain may abduct the family of the hero. Then may have ransom. I'll use that, you have to give this to me or give this to me, like that. Now, generally speaking, there's a fight between two people. Now you start involving their family, that is only going to make the other person angrier. Isn't it? So, at one level, Akampan's suggestion could have seemed foolish. If he is attached to Sita, now that's the only dimension in which he could think about it that way. If he is attached to Sita, then won't he become angry? And won't Ram attack with all his anger? But his thought was, we are protected. We are in an island. And because we're an island, they will never be able to reach us. And when he is not able to find Sita, he will become dejected. And then we can attack him and then we can kill him. So there was Akampan's suggestion. So now Ravan had a lot of confidence in the impregnability of Lanka. That Lanka is just not pregnable. And for any country's prosperity or basically its security, its geopolitical location matters a lot. When Ravan started plundering the universe, he could have gone anywhere. And he could have made his kingdom anywhere. But he decided to make his kingdom in Lanka because he is surrounded by oceans aggressors will find it very difficult to actually come there. One of the reasons why America became a superpower so fast. America is founded about 200 years ago, little more than 200 years ago, and became a superpower because of its location. It's surrounded by oceans on all sides, and above and below are not very hostile neighbors. Of course, immigration is happening now, and that is a threat, but security is there. So he had confidence that if we just abduct her, that will work. Now Ravan went to Maricha, and Maricha, as soon as he heard the word Ram, he said, "What enemy of yours has told you to mess with Ram?" He says, "Ram's arrows have such force, and they threw me miles and miles away." And he said, "Now I live in terror. If I just hear the word letter R, I start trembling." He says, "Whatever has happened, just forget it." See, at this point, Ravan had no sexual interest in Sita. For him, Sita was just a tool to get back to Ram. And he went back. So, then Shurpankhah came there. Shurpankhah was wandering around crazy, thinking, what am I going to do? She got her bearings back. She said, "I'll go to Ram." And when she went back to Ravan, and Ravan was sitting in his own throne, and she came, "What are you doing enjoying the dancing of dancers and musicians when your own army has been destroyed, when your own sister has been humiliated?" And now Ravan didn't like. Nobody likes being publicly called out. What to speak of a place where there is a king. Now Ravan needed a face saver. So he asked Shurpankhah what had happened. Now Akampan had already told him what had happened. He just wanted Shurpankhah to went out. And then he said, "See, you began all this. You went and messed with them. You were the person who first attacked. So it is you who have got us into all this trouble." Now Shurpankhah didn't expect this. Now her mind started working in overdrive. And then she came up with her own spin to the whole story. The most dangerous lies, there are many different kinds of lies in the world. There are some lies which we call as white lies. Like from beginning to end, they are lies. But there are some lies which begin with truth and end with truth. But in between, everything is a lie. And those are very difficult to detect. So she gave a whole, I went there. But did you know why I went there? When I saw how beautiful Sita was, I thought she would be the perfect jewel for you. I went there just to get Sita for you. Do you even know how spectacularly beautiful she is? And as soon as Ravan heard about the beauty of Sita, his eyes went wide open. And then as he started hearing and Sita started describing the beauty of Sita. Shurpankhah started describing the beauty of Sita. Shurpankhah saw that I have got Ravan now. So at this point, Ravan got interested in Sita not to get back at Ram, but to get it for herself. So initially it was his pride, it was a sense of pride that was dishonored. And he said, okay, pride is important, but I want to survive. I don't know, if Maricha is saying I don't want to I should not mess with him, okay. But then, when his lust was triggered, see what happens is, wherever we have attachments, those can be exploited by others. Our attachments are often our weaknesses. And Shurpankhah exploited that. So it was Shurpankhah's manipulation. So now what was the lie over here? See, yes, she had gone to, who had gone to Ram's hermitage, and then and she had come out mutilated. So both of them were true. Now, why had she gone there? That was not just a falsehood, complete falsehood. In that entire time when she was with Ram and Lakshman and Sita, she had probably not even thought of Ravan even once. But what happens is that the most difficult to detect lies are which start with facts, end with facts, but in between there is no way to know. Now you did something, why did you do it? We can't look into people's hearts to know what is going on in their hearts. So now, after this happened, then Ravan immediately went back to Maricha. And he said, you have to help me abduct Sita. He said, I just told you how dangerous it is. He said, I have not come here for your suggestions. I have come here to give you instructions. Either you obey me or I'll kill you. Now, Maricha thought that, I guess my end has come now. So, better let me die at the hands of Ram. That if I die at the hands of Ravan, I don't know where I'll go. If I die at the hands of Ram, then at least I'll have an elevated, auspicious destination. So now this is actually, at one level, he shows a certain level of knowledge that being killed by the Lord brings some auspiciousness. But what is he doing? He is seeking his own elevation or liberation at the cost of doing harm to the Lord. So he is becoming a puppet in the hands of the one who is wanting to hurt Ram. So it is actually you could call it is a knowledgeable calculation, but it is a knowledgeably selfish calculation. It is not a service oriented calculation. So we could say it is Maricha's calculation. So he agreed to play his part. You can call it a miscalculation. That was also a cause of what happened. Now then, Maricha came to the hermitage of Ram, and he came in the form of an extraordinarily, breathtakingly attractive deer. And Sita was in her hermitage and she just peered out of the window and says, hey Ram, hey Lakshman, come here. Can you see how beautiful this deer is? And the deer was just prancing around, moving around. It's like somebody has a small pet, looks so attractive, so cute, like that. And as he was observing, Sita said to Ram, can you get this deer as a pet for me? We can have a nice time with her and with the deer. And then, when we go back to the kingdom of Ayodhya, we could give this as a gift, as a memento from the forest to Mother Kaikai. Now, we could say that it was Sita's desire for the deer that became the cause of the problem. Now, was it? Now, in one sense, was her desire selfish? No, it was not selfish. You can say the desire is innocent. Okay, we are in the forest, there's something for recreation. Yuktahara viharasya, we say. Something for recreation. Now, it could also be said to a certain level selfless desire. So now, Lakshman had always the guard duty. So Lakshman said, there is something which are too good to be true. So he said, if it's too good to be true, then it probably is not true. So he said, this looks very suspicious. Normally a deer is an innocent creature, and when the deer is playing, other creatures also are around it. But around this deer, there is no other creature. He says, something suspicious over here. Maybe it is a demon in the garb of a deer. And Sita said, Lakshman, you are too suspicious. It's just a nice deer. She said, Ram, can you please get it for me? And then Ram thought that Sita has sacrificed so much for me. She has left the forest, she left the kingdom to come with me, even though she didn't have to. She's never complained about the austerities of forest life. If she's asking something from me, no, I should do it. I'll get the deer for her. Now, at this point, Ram heard Lakshman's words, but Ram disregarded the words. So we could say that Ram's chasing the deer, that led him away. And then that eventually, now none of these caused, but you can say all of these have contributed to what actually happened. Now Ram went away, and as he was chasing the deer, that he would close in on the deer, and the deer would just jump, a huge jump, and would appear far away. And this is beyond the capacity of any ordinary deer. So slowly Ram's suspicion started increasing. Lakshman's words were still there in his mind. He started chasing the deer. He still wanted to catch the deer for Sita's sake, but he just kept moving further and further and further away. Each time he would close in and was about to catch it, and he would leap away. And then at one particular time, it didn't just leap away. After leaping, it turned and it appeared as if it was having fun at its expense. It was like smiling, grinning, mocking. And then Ram said, enough is enough now. He decided that I'm going to kill this deer. It has led me away. And till then he wanted it as a pet. That's why he had not shot any arrows. When you want a pet, you don't want a wounded pet. Isn't it? You want a good pet. So he had not used any arrows, but he decided to use the arrow. And then, as soon as he shot the arrow, Lord Ram is known as Amogh Sharam. His arrows never go waste. So his arrow just pierced through the sky and charged into the body of the deer. And the deer fell with a huge thud. And immediately it started calling out. It changed the body of Maricha, and he called out exactly in the voice of Ram. Hey Sita, hey Lakshman! And as soon as Ram heard this voice, he realized this is a full-blown conspiracy. Something deadly is about to happen. He was running rapidly. He charged forward to make sure that the demon was dead. And then he spun around. He started running back. Now, and I told a story once in Australia, and one devotee asked me this question. One young boy said, if Maricha screamed at hey Sita, hey Lakshman, why did Ram scream and tell, that was not me? So, the thing is that while the Lord is God, He in His Leela doesn't always act as God. If He is God, then He doesn't even have to chase the deer, isn't it? He can just extend His arm unlimitedly and catch the deer, isn't it? The Lord is demonstrating, especially in the Ramayana, how an ideal human being functions. And therefore, He generally acts within human limitations. So, what happens is, in the universe, there is many hierarchies. So, in terms of hierarchy, there can be a physical hierarchy, and there can be a moral hierarchy. So, in the ethical hierarchy, humans are above the demons. Humans are better than the demons. Now, of course, devatas are better than humans. But in terms of devatas are above the danavas and the manavas, both. But in the physical hierarchy, the devatas are above, the danavas, the demons are almost as powerful as devatas, and the manavas are way below. So humans are not as powerful as the demons. And that's why Maricha's voice was far, far louder than was Ram's voice. And that's why Ram turned and chased back. So that's why, if you're analyzing a story at an ethical level, suddenly you bring in the devotional level. Then the whole story can be stopped. Now, why did Ram have to fight with Ravan? Ram, as the Paramatma, could have given Ravan a heart attack. Isn't it? And the whole story could have ended. But when the devotional level is there, the story is going on here. So the Lord is acting within human limitations over here. He's not a human being, but he's acting with human limitations. Now, in the meanwhile, Sita was becoming even more anxious. Now, although she had just dismissed Lakshman's words as you're being too suspicious, but those words were still there in her head. And she thought Ram will just catch this deer and bring it back. It just take 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Then Ram disappeared out of sight. And it's going on and on and on. Now suppose, say, we are living in a place where there are some tornadoes happening. And we tell someone, a friend or a family member, no, can you go and buy something from the grocery? It just take 5 minutes. There's a storm likely over here. The storm is going to come after half an hour. We just go and buy it, we can cook something. Now, it's something desirable, but it's not essential. So then we go, then that person goes away, and the person doesn't come back. 5 minutes happen, 10 minutes happen, 15 minutes happen, and we don't know. Maybe there's no GPS, there's no weather alert, so we don't know if the storm has come. What has happened? Then what happens is the anxiety starts increasing. So, as the time was passing, Sita's anxiety was increasing. And if we consider Sita's emotions at this time, our emotions are often a complex blend. There was anxiety, but there is also a certain level of guilt. Because of my desire to send him there, was I responsible for getting him into trouble? So all that was going on. And finally, when she heard the voice calling out, hey Lakshman, hey Sita. And Sita told Lakshman, your brother is in trouble, please go and help him immediately. So Lakshman remained completely undisturbed. He was alert. His suspicion that there was a conspiracy that had more or less been confirmed. So he wanted to be on guard, alert on all sides. And he said, that is not Ram's voice. Oh, that is probably the demon imitating his voice. Sometimes what happens is we are disturbed about something and then we tell someone else to do something about it. And if that person just stays calm and doesn't seem to take what we are saying seriously, then first we are disturbed about what has happened, and then we get disturbed because the other person is not disturbed. Why are you not taking this seriously? So, now Lakshman's intention was actually that if I stay calm, then Sita will also calm down. That he also wanted to be alert for fighting because there's no danger. He says, Ram is extremely powerful, there's no danger for him. He can take care of himself. He has dealt with Maricha before also. So there's no need to worry. But Sita was not pacified. And Sita, you heard his voice. How can that be the demon's voice? He says, no, it is not Ram's voice. So you think I can't recognize my own husband's voice? You think that I can't recognize if somebody is mimicking it? It is your brother. Please go immediately. And Lakshman told, now Ram told me to be here to guard you. He says, I am not in danger. Ram is in danger. Please go immediately. And Lakshman was just not ready to go. And at this point, when something is happening and things don't make sense, at that time, what do we do? So we somehow try to make sense of things. We need to, why is Lakshman not going? There is so much danger over here. She's just trying to make sense of why Lakshman is not going. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that there are our self-destructive desires. Krishna uses the word kama, but it refers not only to lust. It can refer to greed, it can refer to anger, it can refer to any desire or emotion, any self-destructive desire or emotion that comes within us. It exists at the level of the senses, it exists at the level of the mind, and it can also exist at the level of the intelligence. It talks about this in 3.40. So what does this mean? That at the level of the senses, we see something and we are agitated. At the level of the mind, what we have seen is replaying in our mind. When it goes to the level of intelligence, we start scheming. How can I do this? Now, if we know it is wrong and other people will catch us, we start scheming. How can I do this in such a way that I can get away with it? So basically, for most of us, what happens is, if there is some temptation, then what happens is the mind is pulling us toward it, the intelligence is saying no. Intelligence, don't do this. This is not good for you. But sometimes the mind becomes so powerful that the mind not only drags the intelligence along, but the mind uses the intelligence. That means the mind uses the intelligence to justify. Like I talked about rationalizing earlier. So what happens is, here, if this happens, then the intelligence starts going along with the mind instead of opposing the mind. So, hey, this is not wrong. Why do people consider this to be wrong? Whatever I did was right. Everybody does it. Why do people? We come up with various reasons. So for Sita, her mind was extremely agitated. Now here, we are talking at the ethical level. We are not talking about devotional level. Because you see, the God is of fortune and it's all the Leela of the Lord. Then there's nothing for us to learn over there. So she started thinking, why is Lakshman not listening to me? Why is he not going to care for Ram? So in her immense stage of anxiety, she was somehow trying to make sense of something. Somehow she was trying to get him to go. So she was trying to make sense. When there are times of great stress or tension or anxiety, sometimes we may not even be aware of what we are doing. So at that time, somehow she came up with a reason. I know why you are not going after Ram. You have an evil desire to possess me for yourself. All these years you have been serving us faithfully. You have been just waiting for an opportunity. And each of those words was like a thunderbolt falling on Lakshman. Now, to be accused of something bad, that itself is painful. But to be accused of having done something bad when we have done nothing bad, that is even more painful. And especially if that accusation comes from someone whom we trust and someone whom we expect that they should be trusting us. Now that is unbearably painful. Oh Sita, you do not know what you are speaking. Please don't speak such words. Ram will come back soon. Lakshman tried to pacify Sita. But Sita was so blinded by her anxiety at that time. He says, you will never be able to fulfill your evil desire. Now, if Ram does not come back, I will rather die than ever be touched by you. And you will never be able to fulfill your desire. She was just going on a rant like that. And then Lakshman just couldn't bear it. And he said that I cannot stay here and hear what you are saying. I will go from here. I have to go from here. So now there was Sita's accusation. Now Ram went away from there, Lakshman went away from there, and we will talk about Lakshman Rekha in tomorrow's class, exactly how things happened. But when Lakshman went away, at that time, he ran and he told Sita that, that I'm afraid that if I come back, you will not be here. That you will not be here. But I cannot bear these words. So when Lakshman ran back in the direction where Ram had gone, and then they came across a forest clearing, and Lakshman saw Ram. And seeing Ram, Lakshman was relieved. But seeing Lakshman, Ram was agitated. He says, what has happened? Why are you here? Why are you not with Sita? Has anything happened? Now the words that Sita had spoken were so painful that Lakshman couldn't even repeat them. And Lakshman was trying to figure out words, and Ram was getting angry. What happened? What happened? And they were both turning around, running back. Then Lakshman spoke what Sita had spoken. And Ram said, she must have been anxiety, she just spoke something. Why did you take it so seriously? Now, Lakshman could have got angry, So there was Lakshman's departure. Ram said, you should have tolerated it. You have not taken her word so seriously. So now, at this point, Lakshman could have turned back and said, Ram, you should have taken my word seriously and not gone after that deer only. Isn't it? And they just charged back. And they charged back and they saw there was no Sita. They turned around, they just couldn't find her anywhere. Now at this point, Lakshman didn't say, she spoke such words to me, sirs are right. That would have been horrendous. Yes, see, so sometimes what happens is pain makes us lose perspective. When I am hurt, I want to hurt you back. But there is always a sense of perspective. Okay, somebody spoke hurtful words, but she's in danger. Has she been devoured by a demon? Has she been abducted? What has happened? That is a far greater danger. So, at this point, both Ram and Lakshman, although Ram told Lakshman that, you should not have taken Sita's word so seriously. But Ram did not blame Lakshman. Lakshman did not blame Ram. Why did you not listen to my words? Okay, now this has happened. Let us see what we can do now. Now this has happened. It's generally speaking, whenever bad things happen, there is a human tendency. I'll make 2 points and then we'll conclude this. That there is a human tendency to personify. Personify means personify problems. That means when some problem has come, if the problem just doesn't have a face, it's very difficult to deal with the problem. This problem is caused by this person. And so we want to pin the blame for a problem on some person and target that person. This often leads to scapegoating. Now, regarding Lakshman Rekha, in the Valmiki Ramayana, there is no mention of the Lakshman Rekha. In the later retellings, especially Ramcharitmanas, there is a mention of the Lakshman Rekha. Now, sometimes what happens is that when Sita was abducted, she came out of the Lakshman Rekha. And it was her mistake because of which she was abducted. So that is an analysis that is taken. Sometimes what happens is, the person who has been victimized, they are blamed for that. Like blaming and shaming the victim itself. You must have done something because of which that person did that thing to you. What did you do? To send some signals or whatever. So at least the Valmiki Ramayana leaves no scope for that. That Ravan came and abducted Sita. So what was Sita's role? Now what exactly happened, that we'll discuss there. But the point is that neither Ram nor Lakshman try to just blame anyone. It is not that, okay, now this has happened, now what can we do about it? So because our tendency is there, when there is a problem, we want to fix it on someone. Because of you this happened. But real life is very complex. And many factors play a role. And the real cause, or the most important cause of Sita's abduction was Ravana. It is not all these factors contributed, but sometimes what happens is, it's like when bad people do bad things, we let bad people off the hook and say, they are going to do that only. But why did you let them do it? And sometimes you start blaming the good people only. And that has to be avoided. Of course, as good people, we have to learn lessons. And we'll talk about the lessons over there. But this tendency to find someone to blame, that is a tendency that can make things worse and even make relationships worse. So, apaishunam in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is aversion to fault finding is a characteristic of the godly nature. Don't just jump to conclusions, that this person is faulty, this person is faulty. It is this person's fault. So now even Lakshman, when finally they won the war and they reunited, at that time Lakshman didn't say to Sita, okay, when are you going to apologize for what the words you spoke to me? There's no mention of that at all. See, there are words that are spoken in tension. And when words are spoken in tension, don't see intention in those words. Don't see intention in what words are spoken in tension. Sometimes life can be so difficult that even the best of us can end up doing things that we regret afterwards. So somebody just one-off spoken something terrible that may have hurt us, but don't see it. Oh, this is what you always thought about me. This is how you are always. So we need to let things go. That, okay, now Sita had always been, Lakshman had always been very respectful to Sita, and Sita had always been very kind of affectionate to Lakshman. They had a very nice relationship. So this was a terrible thing that happened, but when we are in tension, sometimes we need to consider the circumstances and not just blame the person. You did something like this. So I was in America, I was hosted by one devotee, young devotee, and he, very nice devotee. He had also brought his father to America. He was trying to get his father to get immigrated. Not very easy to get immigration also, and even if you get, legally it's difficult, financially it's not very easy, healthcare and everything, but he was trying to do that. And he told me that my father is very cold to me, and I don't know why it is. His father was also saying the same, he was also quite appreciative to come for my classes. So then I talked with him. He said, I also noticed that there was like a constant tension between him and between the father and the son. And he said, I lost my mother long ago, I don't have a mother, I want to care for my father, but my father shows no affection to me at all, no matter what I do for him. So then I asked his father, we went for a walk together and we were talking, father elderly, and then he told me, he said, I want to tell you something. Yeah, he says, you know that. So he said, okay. So he said that actually when his mother passed away, he was in 10th. And I had a job, I had to travel, but I was doing everything that I could take care of him. And when his 10th exam was there, at that time he was studying late into the night, and he told me to wake him up early in the morning. So I woke him up, but he was very tired. I woke him up once, twice, thrice. He didn't wake up. So I let him sleep. He wanted to wake up at 5 o'clock, and finally I said I let him sleep for some time. And then he woke up at 7 o'clock, and he got so angry with me. And he said words that are permanently scarred on my heart. He said, it would have been better if you had died instead of my mother. I was shocked to hear that. He says, from that time, now although I want to be affectionate to my child, I just can't. Those words keep replaying in my head. So then I talked with the son, and he said, did I speak that? He said, how could I don't even remember what I spoke at that time. He said, I was in so much anxiety. He said, I could see my father was so unhappy that his mother had passed away because of cancer quite suddenly and rapidly. Cancer, they had detected it very late. So he said that I could see my father was so sad. I wanted to make my father happy. And that's why I was studying so hard. And that's why I was in so much anxiety. And I don't even know what I spoke. Then when I told him this, he went to his father and he fell at his father's feet, begged forgiveness. I absolutely don't remember at all. And then he told his side of the story, why he was so anxious. He said, I don't know what I spoke, I was just anxious because of this. Then I told both of them this story. That what Sita spoke, about how Lakshman took it. And then the father and the son, they both embraced each other. And so his father was always thinking, does my son always feel like this, that I should have died? we all can speak words intention, and don't see intention in words that are spoken intention. Now, of course, from the other perspective, even in tension, we should not speak certain words. Like I talked about boundaries. At boundaries, even in our words, they should be there. So what the son spoke was wrong. He should never have spoken like that. What Sita spoke was a grievous accusation. It was unfounded in facts. It was wrong. But just don't see intention in what is spoken intention. That let things go. Sometimes when we let some words remain, we start seeing, does this person actually think like this about me? But then if you see the person is kind and affectionate and respectful, then spoke those words. Don't let words spoken in a few minutes blind us to the history of the entire person and the relationship. Otherwise it can just cause immense harm. So when we are focusing on how do we avoid this blaming tendency, so the key, which is what I'll build on tomorrow, is that there is a difference between being responsible and blaming. The key difference is in the focus. In blaming, the focus is on the cause. In being responsible, the focus is on the cure. Now, in looking for the cure, we may also consider the cause. That, okay, what caused this? I would like to understand that so that I can fix it. But the focus, a part of being responsible is focus on how this issue can be dealt with. And yes, to understand why this issue occurred, we may want to know the cause. But sometimes life is so complex that we cannot just figure out the cause. I have a friend in California who is a firefighter. In California, there are a lot of fires that happen in the forest because it's a relatively one of the hotter places in America. So he says, whenever there is a fire, there are forest fires, and the forest fires sometimes happen near human habitation also. So whenever there is a fire, the first thing we would like to know is what caused the fire. Was it just accidental? Was it because of some electricity? Was it somebody had put intentionally caused it? Was it arson? If it was arson, then was it with fuel? Was it some other chemicals? Is there some explosive possibility over there? So we want to find out the cause. But sometimes there are no clues to know what caused the fire. And if we can't know, that doesn't mean we can stop fighting the fire. We can just say, oh, we don't know, what can we do? At that time, even then, what we do is, okay, this fire is here, and there's some civilians over there. We want to stop the fire from going there. So attack the fire over there. So later on, after the fire is dealt with, then we may be able to find out what actually caused the fire. And sometimes we may never be able to find out what caused the fire in terms of one particular cause. So samsara davan loka. In this world, problems happen like a forest fire. And example of a forest fire is often given because nobody causes the forest fire. It just happens naturally. But there are two things in life we want to make sense. We have a human tendency to make sense of things. Why is this happening? But making sense of things may not always be possible. We can try to make sense in things. In things means, now that this has happened, what is the most sensible response over here? So if we can, this is good, but this is what is more important. Make sense of things is, why is this happening? So why? Why is this happening? But what can I do? What can I do to deal with this? And the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita is more a focus on what can I do to fix this. See, Arjuna faces a samsara davanala. He faces a war against his own relatives, against his own grandfather and his teacher. And Krishna does not go into any esoteric previous life revelations. Bhishma was this in this life, and you were so and so in this life, and both of you done this, that's why you fought. Krishna says, this is how it is, what can you do now? And Arjuna's response is, Karishye vachanam tava, I will do your will. So when we say, how do we know what is God's will? Ultimately, God wants us to be a part of the solution. He's the well-wisher of everyone, and He wants us. He's well-wisher for us and for others. So when some problem has come, the focus should be, if we can make sense of things, that is good. Why did this happen? But our focus needs to be, make sense in things. Now that this has happened, what can we do about it? The house is on fire. How did the fire occur? Now first go, is there anyone inside? Go and save them first. Afterwards you can find the cause of the fire. So that being responsible means focusing not on finding someone as the cause, but on finding the solution. And as a part of the solution, we may find the cause and we have to deal with it appropriately. But the tendency to blame or scapegoat means that we focus only on the some person who may only be partly causing the problem, and we zero in on that, and the problem simply grows worse by that. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. That we discussed 3 main points. First was the 4 approaches to studying scripture. What are the 4 approaches? LEAD: literal, ethical, allegorical, and devotional. So we discussed within these, the literal is good for the Kanishta level. It is nice, entertaining, but for people who are more analytical, it might seem unsophisticated. And the ethical gives us some guidance for decision making. The problem could be that some of the ethics maybe are not understandable for us. We may become judgmental. So our focus should be on what is good rather than what is right rather than who is right. The allegorical can give us some intellectual illumination about some universal themes that I illustrated. So the ethical and allegorical are used by the Madhyamas. And the Uttamas, they focus on the devotional level, where now the difference between the literal and the devotional is that those who are at the devotional level can do ethical and allegorical analysis, but their heart is drawn simply towards remembering the Lord and relation to the Lord's pastimes as the supreme demonstrations of love. But for those who are not at that level, they may find the devotional level as intellectually or ethically unsatisfactory. So depending on whom we are interacting with, we can focus on sharing scripture at a particular level to them. So we discussed at the ethical level to get guidance for decision making. So I discussed the story of Sita's abduction, and we discussed how many life lessons as we were going through the story. But the key point we discussed was that there were so many factors, ranging from their decision to go southward or going further back to Kaikeyi's plot, that to the point where Lakshman went away. Now because all these factors are there, but the cause of the abduction is Ravana. And sometimes we may neglect the primary cause and we just go to other factors. So we also discuss various aspects about how when a particular person, how lies happen. The most dangerous lies that begin with truth and end with truth, but they are in between all falsity. So there are a lot of psychological insights we discussed over there. But the key lessons that we discussed is that 2 main lessons. We want to avoid blaming, and we want to take responsibility. And taking responsibility means the focus is on what? Focus is on the solution, on the cure. And as a part of the cure, we may try to understand the cause. But blaming is only the cause and just blame and demonize the cause. That's where scapegoating happens. And sometimes we can't make sense of things, but we can make sense in things. What is the responsible way to act? Another thing, one aspect to discuss was that what are words spoken in tension, that we don't see intention in them. Don't see that, oh, this is what you really think about me. That let those words pass. That everybody in difficult situations can speak terrible words. We from our side should avoid speaking such words. But if somebody speaks, don't take it too seriously. Now, how Ram, Lakshman, Sita, Jatayu, all of them acted to contribute towards the solution, that we will discuss in tomorrow morning session. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we'll take only one question. Okay, sure. Is there any one question anyone has? Yes, please.
One question.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the excellent class. Prabhu, in the real world, Prabhu, when we become victims of scapegoating sometimes. Often we are in a birth life. Do we then go back to the four approaches to find that meaning, Prabhu, and understand that better, or?
Okay, that's a very different subject. Say when we get scapegoated, what do we do? Well, generally we'll find that among people there are three broad groups. There are those who are supporters, those who are neutral or fence sitters, and those who are accusers or opponents. So those who want to scapegoat us, we will be very unlikely to be able to convince them. So they are going to have those particular ideas and they are going to try to propagate for whatever reason. So what we can do is try to, it's like when we are accused, when accusations come, there are two ways to take to the accusations: to take it personally or to take it objectively. Now it is difficult to take it objectively when we are being accused, but take it objectively means that we try to, this is natural but this is much more desirable. So okay, what happened exactly? We try to present our side of the story as objectively as possible, without being defensive, without being offensive. And what will happen is, among these three groups of people, say if I am here, there are people who are supporters. Then there are people who are fence sitters. And then there are people who are the accusers, the opponents. So the supporters, we can boost them. When we tell our side of the story, non-defensively, objectively as possible, they will be there to support us. Now, how much they support, how much you support, that will vary from person to person. We can't have that. But we can at least provide them that. Now the fence sitters, we might be able to win over. Now the accusers, we can check them. Check them means at least, that I can't just keep spinning the story. They have given a counter narrative. Then I have to find the holes in the counter narrative and I come up with something else. So we have a duty to tell our side of the story when we are scapegoated. So when we do that, see, this is what I have a whole session on Bharat. When Bharat came back after Kaikeyi had exiled Ram, everybody thought in Ayodhya, or at least suspected, that Bharat was in the conspiracy. So at that time Bharat was accused. Nobody was openly accusing him, but sometimes an open accusation is better than an unspoken suspicion, isn't it? At least this open accusation, then you can counter that. But everybody is looking at us with suspicion. So it becomes, so Bharat basically did this. He just spoke objectively. And especially what he did was showed by his actions. The words in one sense are cheap. But he said, I have no part with it and I am going to fix this. So he said, I am going to go to get Ram back. And then many citizens came with him. And then all suspicion disappeared after that. So yes, sometimes he was not being scapegoated by anyone. There was no one targeting him, but he was unfairly accused basically. So sometimes we have to deal with that. Just try to be as objective as possible in our words explaining what happened, and then our actions, let our actions speak. Okay. So thank you very much. If the story went a little long today, there's a lot to discuss, but we will continue tomorrow. And if you have any pressing questions, we'll try to keep some time tomorrow morning for questions. So tomorrow morning we'll be discussing, as I said, the main theme will be how to be responsible. Responsible means focus on the cure. So when we face difficult situations, how can we focus on the cure, and how the various characters tried according to their capacity to focus on the cure, focus on the solution. Thank you very much. Shri Ramachandra Bhagwan ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.